From what I've been seeing over the last 5 years or so of coaching and teaching millions of students, most of you are only operating at about 60% capacity. I've had the pretty unique opportunity where I've been able to dig into the minds of thousands of students, not only from reading the thousands of comments and feedback I get from this YouTube channel, but also from the one-on-one coaching I do in the Transform Your Grades Challenge. The link's in the description below for more information on that, but when I'm coaching, I'm able to really dig deep and ask each student the real reason why they're not reaching their full potential. And I often ask my students in the course, how many hours in the day you waste? How many days in the week do you waste? And the answer I normally get back is about 4 to 6 hours a day is wasted on things that just aren't helping in the long term, like watching YouTube, like watching Netflix, social media, things of that nature. So let's say you waste 4 hours every day doing mundane things. That's about 28 hours a week, or 112 hours a month, or 1,344 hours a year. So let's say if your time is worth $10 an hour, which is a very low estimation, your time is probably worth far more than that, but let's say for argument's sake, it's worth $10 an hour. So you're wasting over $13,000 a year. And that's a lot of money you're wasting, and you're wasting that right now. And it's not just the obvious things like the number of hours you're wasting watching daft videos on YouTube, but the majority of us live so inefficiently. And I'm no exception here. The last couple of months I've been thinking about this quite a lot. How can I make my life more efficient and achieve significantly more in the same amount of time? And when it comes to your studying, how can you study more in less time? Because that's what you should really be aiming for, this idea of studying smarter rather than harder. And it's a hot topic on this channel. I made a video on how you can do exactly that, how you can study smarter, not harder. You can click on the pop-up banner above to watch it, but by studying more efficiently, you can save hours in your day, which can be better spent doing things more productive. So what would happen if you just stopped wasting your time? What if you started studying super efficiently and you dropped all the unproductive things you do during the day that don't make you any happier long term, and your day suddenly opened up, just an extra 5 hours right there, right? What would you do with those 5 hours? It's almost limitless. And Jordan Peterson talks a fair bit about this, on what could happen if you take those time-sucking habits out of your daily schedule.
And so if your life isn't everything it could be, you could ask yourself, well, what would happen if you just stopped wasting the opportunities that are in front of you? You'd be, who knows how much more efficient? 10 times more efficient. 20 times more efficient. That's the Pareto distribution. You have no idea how efficient people get. It's off the charts.
And Jocko Willink mentioned in one of his podcasts, success and failure are generally slow processes, either slowly building things up or slowly tearing things down. And that's why you have to pay attention. You have to watch every second, because those seconds, they turn into minutes, and the minutes, they turn into hours, and the hours, they turn into days, and the days turn into years. So let's say you spend 2 hours watching YouTube and not watching videos that are good for you, but watching in that kind of mindless way that people do when they're not really paying attention. They're just wanting to waste time. How about you try this to start off with? How about you watch a documentary for 2 hours? Something that you're studying. If you're studying economics, then a documentary on the US-China trade wars. If you're studying medicine, then a documentary on the COVID pandemic. At least you'll be learning something. At least it's educational, and it will be building you up. The term "you are what you eat" is thrown around quite a lot, but in my opinion, it's also true that you are what you consume. You are products of your environment. We are what we watch. We are what we listen to. We are what we think about all day. So you need to program your mind, and you do that by the content that you consume. So instead of listening to music on your commute, listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks on subjects that are in line with the life that you want to create. And if you remove that 2 hours of wasted time binge watching pointless videos on YouTube, and instead you replace it with 2 hours of content consumption in a subject that will actually benefit you down the line, a subject that you want to be an expert in, a subject that you want to build a career around, in 2 or 3 years, you can be in the top 5% of your industry. Because once you get out of the mindset of trying to kill time on Instagram or trying to kill time on YouTube, and instead you use those social media platforms and start investing that time on building yourself up and making yourself more knowledgeable and smarter and more inspired, it will dramatically improve the quality of your life in terms of your happiness, in terms of your health, in terms of your finances and relationships. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Start following people that inspire inspire you. Subscribe to YouTube channels that pump you up rather than just suck all your time. Surround yourself with a digital network that will encourage you to become the best version of yourself. Because what happens if you don't? What happens if every day you continue to just throw hours of your day out of the window? Well, there's a short-term and a long-term consequence. The short-term consequence is you feel bad, right? It's uncomfortable knowing that you're wasting your life. You've been given this one life, you've been put on this earth to achieve incredible things, but you just go and waste it. It doesn't feel good, right? And the long-term consequence is you fail your exams, you don't get into the university you wanted to go to, you end up in a mediocre job, you live just above the poverty line, like most people do. Because if you're wasting so much time when you're this young, who's to say you're going to change that habit in 5 or 10 years time when you're working? And if you continue to waste your time, I mean, you know how bad it can get. You failed exams because you didn't use your time efficiently. You've had relationships negatively affected because of this. You know the opportunities you've missed because you spent so much time procrastinating. You know how bad it can get. And I'm so passionate about this message. I'm trying to kind of get this message across that we should at least consider stopping just mindlessly letting life pass us by, because I've lived most of my life like that, up until about 7 years ago when I made the decision to sort my life out and live more intentionally and start putting more effort in. I realized that the more effort I put in, the more I put into life, the more I would get out of it. But in many ways, I'm glad that I wasted a lot of my youth spending 14 hours a day playing video games, neglecting my studying, living life in a very passive way, because I learned so much along the way. I know how bad it can get. I was a little bit late getting into the game, but I was still young, my late teens, early 20s, when I started to kind of make that transition from being unmotivated and unproductive and wasting so much of my life to actually getting back on track and putting in the effort and putting in the work and making things happen. And now I'm so much more motivated to teach others not to live the life that I lived, because honestly, it's depressing. It's such a waste. And I'm kind of wanting to use the transformation that I've made in my own life and try and inspire others to also make that same transformation too. It's also why I created the Transform Your Grades in 30 Days program. It took me almost a year to make it because I wanted to have it perfect before launching. And at the end of the day, we only have one life. Time is finite, so wasting your time on YouTube or Netflix or whatever else you want to waste your life on is so incredibly destructive, but the vast majority of us don't realize actually how destructive if you add all the wasted hours up. So I think one of the most effective things we can do to cut out all the inefficient and useless tasks that we do during the day is to strategically create and implement high performance habits into our lives. I made a video on 6 high performance habits you can implement that should significantly increase your productivity and output. You can click on the video on the screen. Alternatively, I made a video on how I went from D grades to A grades. Both videos are really important. From the feedback in the comments, you guys loved them. So whichever video you choose to watch, I'll see you over there.